All right, guys. Today we're here to talk about the Arizona Coyotes, the year they had last season. Sorry, hasn't even been a new year yet. And now that the draft is finished, the position that they sit in from that, and what they've done so far in free agency. So last year, I think was a pretty big step in the right direction for the Arizona Coyotes. They were, which you can argue either way against this, I guess, but was it the best time to have a good season? Maybe not, with the likes of Connor Bedard on the line. But yeah, a lot of people were expecting Arizona Coyotes to finish dead last in the standings, to literally be, not really competitive, to basically be an out and out 32. They thought they would take 32nd overall without a doubt, and they'd be the front runner for Connor Bedard. Didn't turn out that way. They ended up finishing 27th overall, ahead of a few teams that most probably would have expected them to definitely not be in front of. You've got Montreal and probably San Jose, who wouldn't have expected to be below the Arizona Coyotes, I wouldn't have thought, especially Columbus Blue Jackets, given who they picked up. But yeah, they had 28 wins for the season and ended up with a total of 70 points. Now, for a team that was probably expected to do maybe 50 at most, I think 70 points was a fantastic effort from them. And yeah, it was all credited to, they didn't exactly have the best team on paper, but the effort that they showed night in, night out was a big reason they were in so many games and they won so many last year. It was one of the best things about Arizona last season, was that they were going to have their bad games. They had a few games where they got blown out and just couldn't. And that, it wasn't lack of effort. It was, they literally just, the talent that they have compared to the other teams, they just couldn't take it to them, and they got outplayed. But the effort every night was there, and that's what helped them get some of those really gritty wins. And they beat a couple of big teams as well, unexpectedly, and played quite well against those teams. So yeah, I think that was probably the massive positive from Arizona. Um, I liked watching these guys probably the most out of the bottom probably 10 teams, purely for that reason as well. Like, the effort was there, and effort's something you can't, like, you can't instill in someone. You can work on your puck handling and all the rest of that, but you can't grab a player and teach them effort. So for them to have as much effort running through this team as they do, it's a really good stepping stone, and building block. That's what their expectation comes down to when you're playing for the Coyotes. Now, there's some issues with them not getting the stadium and all the rest of that stuff, but could railroad this, what was a really positive season, but that's yet to be seen. So, yeah, last season, in my opinion, really fantastic from the Coyotes. But I'm going to pass you on to Jaden now to take you through the lineup as it currently stands, as per cap friendly.
Alrighty. Pretty standard. Clayton Keller, first line. Bukestad, who they brought in. Not your first line center on a normal team, but it's some good depth that they've got brought in there. And Nick Schmaltz on the right wing. Jason Zucker, another player they brought in. Playing really good. Honestly, it just matter if he stays healthy or not. But and obviously he doesn't show up in playoffs, but I don't think Arizona are worried about that at the moment. But yes, it's very good additions in Bustad and Zucker so far. Barrett Hayton most likely going to center there, then Kraus on the wing. Michelli, who's yet to re-sign. Travis Boyd and Kerfoot on the third line. Kerfoot, another good additional signing. A little expensive, 3.5 million in my opinion, but honestly, it's not that expensive. Probably just like an extra million, maybe an extra 500,000. So it's not overly expensive, and they've got a good depth signing there. Fourth line, Liam O'Brien, McBain yet to re-sign as well, and then Dylan Gunther. We'll see if he can keep developing into what people think he can become. Defenders, this just have to note that this is the cheapest defense in the league. They have some big sign defenders like Shea Weber, but obviously they're just LTIR. So JJ Moser and Soderstrom on the first line here. Dersey, who they brought in via trade, 1.7 million. 1.7 million is their most expensive defenseman. And then Joshua Brown on that second line as well. Valimaki and Stetcher. Stetcher they brought in through the UFA through signing as well, just for 1 year. Yeah, very very cheap defense. All up is like $6 million. I think they've got a I don't know if they've got to bring in any other people because they do have Soderstrom playing and whatnot, and Moser. But 6 million. The next highest is 12 million. That is Ducks, and I think they still need to sign a couple more defenders. So that just shows you how cheap this defense is. Goalie situation: Vamelka. Love Vamelka. Great goalie. I'm kind of interested to see if they do ever move on from him or not, just for asset wise. But I'm really a big fan of Vamelka. Then you got Connor Ingram as the backup there. Scratches, Kokone, Galchenyuk, who they've brought in via signing, and then Kesselring. So a little bit of depth there. Nothing great overly. They're just hoping for maybe some bounce back from Galchenyuk and whatnot. Notable losses: Imama to Ottawa, Mackey, New York Rangers, Fisher to Detroit. You could probably put in Voracek there for injury. He's you know,
I mean, is he really a notable loss if you never even had him
well,
in the first place?
yeah, pretty much. It's interesting. They got three people on the injured reserve that probably won't be playing, and Brian Little, Shea Weber, and Voracek. All huge contracts, like 21.4 mil, sitting there in contracts. Yeah, it's a little bit of a loss. Like obviously they gave up a contract just to bring him in, but it was 1 year. Most likely won't play because of his concussion history and whatnot. So that's sad to see for Voracek. Most likely retiring from NHL. Good player, good career. Uh, in regards to their dead cap, not much to speak of here. They've got basically 1.8 million this year, 2.2 the next year. Then it's pretty much 650 going forward because of Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So not much in dead cap. Granted, the LTIR we just said there's a lot of dead cap there. And then honestly, this team's still loaded with draft picks, even though they've been drafting crazy. They got Logan Cooley last year. I'll just mention that he's most likely not going to play this year. It was looking that he's going to play, but because the stadium didn't go ahead, in an interview he did say that that was one of the things that's leading him to play another college year. So you're probably looking at another year, 2024. Wait for Logan Cooley to go pro if you're an Arizona fan, which kind of sucks. I would have liked to see him play this year. I feel like he could still make that decision. We'll see how he goes through development camp and all that, but I would like to see him play. But it's looking like he might go to college for one more year. And yeah, then they got Dmitry Simashev, another defender. I got a guy I love his name, Daniel Butt, number 12 overall. I just love that name.
But what?
But yeah, but what? But yeah, it's like what it should have been his middle name. I'm telling you, Daniel Butt, but what? Should be Daniel, but what? That should have been the name.
Uh,
The family
yeah,
messed up
but
there, but
no, for sure, for sure. But they've got one hell of a prospect pool, don't they? And I know you said you're disappointed that Cooley's not coming through, but I don't think there's any real rush for him, to be honest. Like, you look at the moves they've made. Yeah, it would be great to have him come through, but you got to ask the question: is it better for his development to stay
oh,
one more year in college, or to come through and play in this lineup now? So I guess that's probably the question. It's the same with Connor Geeky, and probably Maverick Lamoureux. They're three of the big ones from last year's draft. So yeah, is it worth just throwing him in this year and hoping that they're ready? Cooley might be ready, but is it going to harm his development, or
Yeah.
will he be better off staying in college? So I don't think they're in any rush. That's the thing for it. Like, there's no. I think the biggest thing here is probably whether or not that causes Clayton Keller to pull the pin, because I know there's been a lot of talks about him, wanting a trade out of Arizona. So is that the reason that he does go, nah, get me out of here? That's the only downfall I could see is, Keller's probably sitting there going, well, if Cooley comes through, Geeky comes through, maybe this team has a chance and we start building. But at the end of the day, if you leave these guys for another year, because I don't think they're in a rush, Arizona, right now. I think they want to do it right. They want to get all their prospects in a line. They want to go and get as much talent as they can, develop them down in college and
Mm.
um, youth, and then bring them up and bring them through all together. Um, Plus try to develop the youth that they've currently got coming through, like Maselli and Gunther, um, and the rest of them. So yeah, I think there's no point rushing him. So if he's not ready to come through and college is gonna continue his development, you may as well leave him for another year, because I'm thinking even with Logan Cooley, they're probably still finishing from 25th to 32nd. Um, do I think they'll finish dead last? Probably not. Not with some of these pickups like Zucker and Kerfoot. Um, but I don't think that they're going to be anywhere near competing. So yeah, let him go. Let him sit in
Well,
college
he
for
said he's
another
going to
year.
do what's best for his development, so he's
Mm,
most likely going college, which I don't think Arizona care about too much. But
no.
I think it'd just be better for him personally, even for his development, that he did play this year, because he would have got
Mm.
real big minutes and whatnot. But
Well, you're probably playing first line, aren't you? He's probably
yeah,
playing with Keller
and you're
and
playing with
Strong.
Keller, you build that chemistry. That's your core for that. That's your core going forward. Um, and Geeky, if he comes through, that's your top two. That's your top six centers right there. So, or depending how Barrett Hayden goes in that regards. But so they got that center depth, but it's just their defense really that is lack. Like 6 million for your defense is nowhere near going to cut it. It's honestly like a AHL salary defense. Doesn't mean it's a bad in regards, because you can have entry level contracts on it, but they do need probably two big contracts on that defense, basically to bring your first or your top 4D. And I feel like that's what they need to add now, because I like Kerfoot. That's a good addition for depth. I like Zucker, even though it's 1 year. I like Bukestad, but that's more of a depth center for me. More than likely, I'd play like Barrett Hayton on the first, personally. I would have preferred to play Cooley on the first, but you do what you got. But yeah, it's just the fact that I don't mind their forward line. It's just I would like some additions now on their defense. They've made some additions. Like there's a lot of blue and yellow on this here. Um, so they haven't it's just sat around done nothing. But I just feel like they need to do a little bit more, because it's hard, with the stadium and whatnot. The organization is in doubt if it ever does stay in Arizona. I know they want to keep it there, and they've still got some backup plans, I think, for where the stadium can go. But with all the what do you call it, political things that are happening with getting cucked by the other stadiums and whatnot and other billionaires, it makes it a lot harder in that regard. I would love to see it stay, but honestly, you need stability for the team, for the fan base as well. So it's hard just to keep going. Oh, we're going through a rebuild and go through that at the same time. If they were being good, it would be less of an issue. But yeah, so that's why I feel like they got to fast track it just a little bit, because they got the picks now. The picks are sorted. The depth is sorted, in my opinion, in regards to the picks they've already used in Logan Cooley, Connor Geeky. They've had others come up like Gunther, Barrett Hayden. So I feel like they've got the picks and whatnot now. I think they just need to start doing just a few additions in regards to some veterancy in there, especially in their defense. and that's how you keep Vermelka. If you don't make these additions, you have to get rid of Vermelka from assets because I don't feel like he would stay um,
But that's the
as the
issue,
goalie.
isn't it? They could lose him. They could lose Keller. Um, how many people are you going to lose? I think the Jason Zucker signing is pretty much a sign him. He's gonna do what he can, and they're gonna move him on at the deadline for more assets. So I don't think Zucker's going to be hanging around much longer than a year. It is interesting to see that they brought Nick Bukestad and Troy Stetcher back
Mm.
immediately. Basically, they left for handful of months to go chill in the playoffs, and now they're straight back to Arizona. Um, Alex Galchenyuk back to Arizona as well. It's going to be an interesting one. He's a wild card. If he can get some good form going, he's going to be a great bottom six addition to this side. But yeah, look, I see where you're coming from. I think that stadium not getting built has harmed this side so much because if that stadium gets built, this team is everything that they're doing right now is perfectly headed in the right direction. They've they've stocked up on draft picks. They've gotten so much talent through the draft. They even some of the young lads that they've got coming through. I mean, Maselli last year was he had a fantastic year last year. Gunther's looking like he's going to be a great inclusion when he starts playing full time. Clayton Keller, we know the talent that Clayton Keller's got, and he's still quite young. The likes of Barrett Hayton, who's coming through quite well. Soderstrom last year looked alright for what he did. So they've got a lot of good pieces to build off of. But I guess the issue there is that if that stadium isn't getting built and it's going to cause players like Cooley to go to college for the extra year, Clayton Keller to turn around and go, well, I don't want to waste another year of my career, especially playing in a stadium that fits 5,000 people. All of a sudden, all of their hard work could just quickly unravel. People don't want to be there. They don't want to hang around. Maybe some of these young, these some young draft talent that they've got decide that they're not going to sign with Arizona. Yeah, it's just an interesting situation to be in where they made great inroads last year in the way they played, their style, their effort, night in, night out. Yeah, they weren't the most talented, but they were showing some seriously good progression in and exactly what you wanted to see from an Arizona fan point of view is just effort night in, night out, just some development from some young lads. And then all of a sudden you get that kick in the teeth from obviously those people coming through and said we don't need a stadium and all the rest of this stuff and boycotting it, and then the government, if we get in, will be canning the stadium. Like that was just a huge kick in the teeth for everything that they've worked towards, especially after all of the speculation of well, hockey's not going to work in Arizona, just get rid of it, move it on to Quebec or whatever, like just move it out of Arizona. um they finally seemed like they were headed in the right direction. They were getting a new stadium. It was going to be good, and now it's a real question mark. It's left floating in the air, um, and depending on how it goes, it could really depend on whether this team completely implodes and all the good work they've done comes undone, or whether they'll be able to move on and really continue on with this rebuild and head in the direction to potentially make a dynasty for Arizona, because they're not really making bad decisions at the moment. So, um, yeah, it's going to be really disappointing if that stadium doesn't happen, and that alone basically destroys the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah. So I think NHL hockey in itself does work in Arizona. I think it does. it's a hot climate. We come from a hot climate in Australia. Hockey's still here. It's actually bigger than I think people think. It's just honestly we just don't have the funding, or the big league for it. And obviously being on the other side of the world, we don't get those international games. I know Arizona, LA going to play later this year, but it's just a preseason game type thing. But I think it does work. I think it's just purely political on why it hasn't worked. In regards to it, and just getting all those approvals, the other pit teams boycotting, just just basically money being money and politicians being politicians and all that type of stuff. So I think it does work. I think there's actually a big fan base there. They're very passionate. They're very loud for 5,000 people. It was actually great to see, but I can understand why players want to play in front of 20,000, 18,000 people, get those big crowds, and then be that playoff contender. You want to go to playoffs, and then what you're playing in a $5,000, 5,000 seating arena. Like, no, you want to be in 20,000, have that electricity going. So I think it works. Purely political. I hope it still works. I would hate to see it moved, honestly. I would love to see their old logo come back though, because I love their old logo compared to the new one. But that's just me. And yeah, in regards to this, what's on the ice? Like you said, and you brought it up a couple of times, just the effort, the tenacity, and everything that they were doing every night. Vermelka would stand on his head on against some of the best teams. Um, you struggle to see that on some teams. Some teams like Philadelphia didn't have it. New York Rangers did not have it in the playoffs. Like there's just teams that need that and they don't get that. And once you start adding people and that culture is already there of that hard tenacity, you get those a few additions and it sticks to them and it builds those players. So I
You
think I
you
think it's
just
very
touched
bright.
on it with the New York Rangers, right? Like you imagine the New York Rangers talent with Arizona's effort
Oh,
from last
they
year.
would have won the cup hands down.
They were,
Probably
yeah, like,
probably sweeping every team. That like
and that's
I'm not even exaggerating. If they had that, they would have won every game sweeping.
what I was talking about by you can't teach effort.
Mm.
You just can't. Like it's like your team either brings it and has it, or they don't. You can't, like, your coach doesn't come in and go, all right, guys, today we're gonna just completely focus on effort. They'll preach about it. They'll talk about effort, effort, effort. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the player, and it comes down to the culture of, and that's why, like, if you have one player, it's sort of like the Kevin Hayes situation. I don't mean to just, drive by. But Kevin Hayes' situation in Philadelphia, very lazy, very one-directional player. Yeah, he put up massive numbers, but one of the big reasons why they didn't want him in Philly is because he didn't have effort. He was lazy. He was very like, oh, when we're going our end, I'll put in the effort, but I'm not doing anything defensively. So, and that leaks through. The problem with having a player like him is it leaks through to the rest of the team because everyone's like, well, if this guy's not going to do it, I'm not doing it. Like, stuff that. And then all of a sudden you have an entire lineup that's just got this attitude of, well, it's not worth it. Whereas if you have, especially your leaders and the best players on your team, if they're coming in with effort night in, night out, they're putting their body on the line, they're getting back up when they take a big hit, they continue to push and go and give effort night in, night out. That just feeds through to the rest of the lineup.
Mm.
So it's something you can't necessarily teach, but it's contagious.
Yeah,
So all you need to do is get those players in that bring that effort, and that'll spread. So they've already got it. Now they just need to add the players to it and have that spread. And yeah, like I said, if they can get their stuff together with this stadium and everything else, I think they're on the right track. But if that stadium situation is what implodes this team and the good work they've done, I will be shouted for them.
yeah. No, it's probably my favorite underdog team. I don't mind supporting him when they're playing. I do like him. I like Clayton Keller. I think he's really good. Really fun to like Barry Hayton as well. They've just Michelli, whatever you want to call it. I just say Michelli. I actually really liked him. He was actually a real candidate for like rookie of the year type thing going forward because of that. Was amazing what he was doing. I think it was just underlooked because he was in Arizona, but what he was doing and the team that he was on as well. So yeah, they got the pieces now, in my opinion. In the forward line at least, they can always add here and there, but they got the depth. And the youngsters building, and they're, theoretically you expect them to get better every year. And that's what you're hoping. So I think their forward line is somewhat solidified. You just need the defenders that can hold that effort, that have the reach and have the speed that the game requires these days, and the strength. So that's what I feel like they need to add there. 4 million plus salary cap type players that you're looking for. Goalies, love Vamelka. A little inconsistent, but honestly, you're on an Arizona team. Sometimes it's not your consistency; it's the defenders in front of you. And so I think it's really just that defense. And if they do that, I could absolutely see this team being a wild card spot if they fix that defense because I like their forward line. Um, and I don't think it's going to take as much as probably people think it is to fully rebuild this team. But if you start losing players like Keller and whatnot, because of the situations with stadiums, then that's a whole different path that it could be going down. But I don't feel like it will go that way, not yet anyway. And I feel like this will be even a better year than last year. It won't be greater by any means, like in regards to playoffs or anything like that. But I feel like they will still snag some really big victories from teams that are number one, number two in the league. So that's what I'm looking forward to this season.
Sure.
Alrighty, guess we'll leave it there. Um, Feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more content. We'll be covering all 32 teams like this and doing other NHL content going forward. And feel free to leave a comment below on what you think of the Arizona Coyotes and their future. Did they get a stadium? Do they move? Does Logan Cooley play in college? What happens with Clayton Keller? And yeah, just let us know. And until next time, see you guys.
Okay, guys.